Good morning. Thanks for joining us at the second cohort. I want to spend some time today to talk a little bit more about what Protocol Labs and is contributing to the community and how together as an ecosystem we can drive more data sets to our network. As we all know, the market is in a transition. I think all of us know, we feel it, we see it, unfortunately, right? We're in a bear market. Now, the market is in a transition. Again, we have done this before. We have gone through multiple bear markets before as a community. This is probably the fourth right now. And so for us, if you look at a little bit the history of PL, IPFS, and then eventually Filecoin, right? You can see that going back to 2013, all the way up till today, we have gone through these dips and these bear markets and have come out of it much stronger. And so I'm a strong believer that here as well, when the next bull run comes, we will benefit from this. And during that time frame between now and when we are getting back to the next bull run, we have to ensure that we have customer proof points and real paying customers coming to the network. And so that's really what I want to talk about today, because our communities are stronger than most of us sometimes realize, definitely when we pull together as a joint community. And that's one of the strongest value props or strengths of the Filecoin community, that no matter where we go, whether it's Korea, Japan, Singapore, China, Hong Kong, we were recently a couple of months ago in Hong Kong, Australia, or US and Europe, there is a similar passion to succeed and be successful in this network. So if you look at the network, our network is in a constant transition as well, right? So if you look at a year ago, we were talking about starting this program with its main goal to onboard more data sets to the network. Today, we have not only accelerated that onboarding transition, because if you look in the last year, there's been a huge spike. All of us know it. All of you have contributed to a certain extent in onboarding these data sets, public or private, primarily public. And we have actually accumulated a ton of logos that already have helped us put Filecoin on the map, definitely with Web2 customers, but we have a ton more work to do. One example I want to bring forward is, for example, the DSS team in Australia brought in the Victor Chang use case, and we announced that 2 weeks ago. And after the announcement, articles were written about it, and after these articles, new leads would come to the dstore.io website, meaning there is a networking effect that really works as you start talking about the value props of Filecoin to the traditional Web2 customers. And so that's where we want to focus on in our next phase. If you look back at what we have accomplished as a community, what this graph shows here is the storage provider IDs, so the total amount of unique storage provider IDs that have been deployed since inception of our network. And as you can see, this blue line, this blue graph shows a real steep acceleration, obviously a slowdown with some of the providers coming offline or consolidating to use their Filecoin for pledging for data sets. So we were seeing some of that consolidation happening definitely in the last year. But at the same time, we have seen a huge increase in storage provider IDs taking storage deals, which is impressive, right? So today, I should look at it today, but 47% as of last week of the total storage provider ID systems that are out there are taking deals. And so, but I want to call out, which, I'm being very, very nice here, less than 1%, almost zero basically today, are storing data sets for paying customers. And that's the transition that we now have to go work on. By the way, I want to say something. Like last year, we were here in Singapore presenting our audacious goals. I remember putting up a slide saying, hey, by the end of next year, which is the end of 2023, our goal was to onboard as a community 2 exabytes of data. Today, we are very close to 1.5. I mean, at the time, I had multiple people after that meeting, after that presentation at Token, come to me and say, I don't know, that's feasible. And then other people would come up to me and say, I want to help you get there. I want to help us, right? Not just me, but the network, help us. So I'm asking here as well, help us as a community, a network, to bring more paying deals to the network. And so if you look at the history, this is not something that is new. I mean, every emerging solution that went to market or is coming to market has to cross the chasm, right? This is a very common phenomenon, meaning you have these early adopters that are believers, all of us in the room. We're all trailblazers, entrepreneurs, because we see the vision. But the majority, let's be honest, the majority of the market are not trailblazers. They're just laggers. They're just, followers, right? So we're not followers, but we have to bring those followers on to our network and believers of and we do that by demonstrating the value prop and by making the integrations easy. And that's what I want to talk about, because today we have success in research organizations, in higher education, nonprofits. If you go back to 15 years ago when Amazon came out with their S3 interface and other newer object storage solutions came to market, those were also the three early adopters that would benefit from this market, because those are the type of organizations that kind of value their data sets, really understand that they can take advantage of newer technologies that will benefit them in the long run. Now, of course, the ones where we want to get to are the enterprise companies, and for that we need a lot more functionality, the SaaS solutions and building SaaS offerings, and of course AI, right? This new gold rush. We need to find a way to monetize that. So I looked back to my personal experience, like 15 years ago, build an object storage solution. If you look at what happened at the time, in 2006, Amazon came out with an object interface S3. It took around 2 years before you saw a whole new ecosystem of on-ramps, and I couldn't find all the logos anymore because some of them have been purchased by Google, Microsoft, and other hyperscalers. But really what happened was, with the introduction of a new object interface, when the whole community was using file systems, a ecosystem of on-ramps started to appear, right? And these on-ramps translated file to object. So those were just caching servers that would just present file, traditional POSIX file system, NFS, SMBFS on the front end, and we translate it to object storage. And then 2015 to 2020, it took 5 years before traditional Web 2 applications were using or were supporting object storage as a backend, as an archive tier behind these applications. And only today, like 2020 to today, we actually see mass adoption of, just in general, object storage across the board. So it took 15 years. Now we know that in crypto, everything is accelerated. Everything works a lot faster. We're moving at a much faster pace. So this is where I believe we need to focus on right now, is making this, bridging Web 2 to Web 3 and helping accelerate these Web 2 data sets, these Web 2 applications to come into our network. So how do we build these bridges now? As we are going after the large data sets, which are typically stored in Web 2 environments, while we are building the data DAOs, while we are building the Web3 native applications, which we still have to go do, well, for that, we need a few stacks that we have been working on that I would like to share with you. Because in phase 2 of the master plan, which is all about data onboarding, it is more than just onboarding data. It's making sure that Falcon is accessible to the mainstream market user. Pretty standard, obviously, but it's hard to do. We need to increase awareness of Falcon adoption in general, and that will generate to new recurrent revenue and then hopefully fiat revenue streams that will fund all of you in this room. So how do we make Falcon accessible to users? Well, one of the main problems is that in the mainstream market, users just don't want to change their workflows. I think all of you know this. If you are used to like storing data on your iPhone or in the cloud, you just don't want to change the way you work today. You just want it cheaper, faster, easier, more secure, and so on. Now, as I mentioned in my earlier slide, RESTful APIs have become the standard. But today with Falcon, it's a lot more of a complex interface and harder to use. So we need to make sure we have a RESTful API that allows these developers, these traditional applications, to easily integrate into our ecosystem. And that's exactly what we've been working on. And we'd like to share, and Celine and Lauren are here tomorrow from the product management team to kind of take a deep dive into what that looks like and how you can help. But in general, it would allow us to take a Web 2 application, point it to that REST API, and move data transparently into the network and make it a lot easier, because right now there's a lot of phases that you have to go through when onboarding data to the Falcon network. I think we're going into the details for those who haven't done it yet, but there's a whole data preparation effort, right, where data has to be prepared, car files have to be created, and that is very new and unique to Filecoin, right, and it's new for end users. So the more we obfuscate it, the more we simplify it and hide it behind RESTful APIs, the easier it is for those users to move their data sets to Filecoin. So, and obviously there's a lot of other functionality we have to develop, like access control and encryption, but we need to start by making it simple and easy to point applications to Filecoin. So the third aspect we worked on is to make the deal engine or deal making easier for end users, because not only is the data path, right, important, how do we make it easy for the data stream itself to be pointed to Filecoin, and the preparation, how do we make it easy to prepare the data before it's stored on the network. We also have to make sure that the actual deal making itself, right, the final negotiation, the deal transaction that happens between the user or the application that is managing the data with the final network of storage providers is automated. And for that, we have built a new stack as well, which is an automated deal distribution engine that we'll talk about, which is called Spade, which will allow storage providers to sign up for this service, but also it will help with the applications that are storing data onto the network so that they can easily distribute that data across the network. So where do we need help? Obviously, all of us are working today with customers. You're used to working with certain applications yourself, right? When you're storing data or managing your data. So we need your help with bringing those applications, those Web 2 apps, and those could include, of course, Web 3 too. But I'm reaching out to the Web 2 app community, because if we want to pull those applications onto the network, we have to build those integrations. And so what my ask is, we started a landing page that I would like for all of you to scan, where you can bring those web apps to the network. So my ask is, if every single one of you could bring just one application, if you have connections to, let's say, a backup vendor, an archive data mover, or maybe it is an emerging data management stack that sits in the new AI LLM architectures, and you believe that we can integrate. Let's say you have connections with Redis or any database application vendor that we can integrate with, because we still have to, these databases have to be backed up as well, then please bring those to the network. Let us help you. We have a set of engineers now as well that are dedicated to help with these integrations. And now that we have the Project Motion API, which is the open source project where we are contributing those RESTful APIs in, and so this is all available as an open source project. We would need your input, help us test it, help us integrate with it, so that we can together build sort of a new standard that will help bring those Web 2 applications to our network. And obviously, we target legacy stacks, right? This goes from anywhere from existing S3 gateways that are already available today, backup applications, object storage stacks today that already are available through commercial or open source. But if we make those connections, it will help us to tier more data to the network. And if anyone who brings, the nice thing here is the networking effect that we can create, because every new application that is integrated will be obviously available to the rest of the network. So that is really the key that we're trying to drive for. And we know that if we integrate those applications, we have a much higher chance of going to those enterprise customers and making the claim that, look, today you can easily, redirect your, let's say, your backup, your archive, your data sets to the Filecoin network, and we can start charging for those data sets. Because that's the holy grail, is if we can drive more fiat capital into our network, while we also get token rewards, this will help build all of you in building your business. The second ask I have is to help build awareness. I kind of mentioned that initial use case, right, from the DSS team. This really works, meaning every one of you that brings one logo or an actual case study will help the network. And we have seen it happen, right? And so we would like to ask any of you to help with bringing a case study, a logo, anyone who's willing to speak up as a customer and present and defend the Filecoin network is key for us to build the awareness that we need. Because I'll tell you, last week, I think it was a week and a half ago, when I was talking to this press analyst that was, interviewing me for with questions on the use case in Australia, the Cancer Research Institute. It was clear that he was discovering Filecoin almost, right? He's like, oh, you have all these logos. I didn't know about this. So there's a lot of people out there that don't know all the good stuff that is being developed here by the network. So please help us, and we will help advocate on the DStore.io website. So that's the ask. So for phase 2, the more integrations we have, the network will benefit from it. The more users we can attract, the easier we can make it for the users that all of us know that don't understand crypto, that don't understand blockchain, that don't understand Filecoin. If we can make it as easy as just point, your application to this new API, and that will actually drive more data. And we know that data gravity is real, meaning the more data that comes to the network, the more data it will attract. And so we've seen this playbook before, and it's being, it was basically implemented by the hyperscalers, and so that will drive more paying deals eventually. So start with backup, and then archive and backup, sorry, and then we definitely want to explore more in how we can go after this gold rush, this new AI, these new AI architectures, and see how we can plug into those architectures as well. So please help us discover and reach out to these new architectures and use cases to see how we can integrate. So yeah, I'm asking everyone, please help us. Let's get started. I added the QR codes in here, but 2 simple asks. Bring your applications, your connections, ask your users what they're using, bring them to the network, and help us as a community. We have dedicated engineers, we have dedicated teams that will help in integrating those. Tomorrow or this afternoon, you'll actually get a detailed overview from Celine and Lauren from the product management team. We're extremely dedicated. And again, this is the time to build the bridge. So help us with this. And I want to thank all of you for being here today, because I know this is a difficult market, but at the same time, this is where some of the best solutions are built. And so let's all get ready for when this new bull market comes our way. Anyway, thank you.